All right, so we're going to get started. I'm going to call the Committee on Audit to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilson has requested an excuse. Commissioner Killeen.
Here.
Commissioner Garza.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson Mayberry. Chair Dobb.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item.
B, Chairwoman's remarks.
I have none. Next item.
C, approval of the July 8th, 2026 meeting minutes.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Next item.
D, unfinished business. There is none listed.
Okay, next item.
Moving to item 1 under new business, forwarding a copy of the Office of Legislative Auditor General's consulting report on budget sensitive issues and review of Wayne County September 30, 2025 annual comprehensive financial report.
All right, thank you. I will now turn it over to our Auditor General and her team.
Marcy Coro, Auditor General.
Vandy Otis, Deputy Auditor General.
Crystal Thomas, Supervisory Auditor.
And I'm not sure if anybody from M&B is online. Bill Whitfield, maybe? Okay, we had sent the report out and for the audit committee, but I guess they're not here. We will continue on it.
Okay, that's fine.
This is our budget sensitive review of the September 30, 2025 annual comprehensive financial report. We prepare this report every year for the Committee on Audit and the Committee on Ways and Means to capture the budget sensitive issues which may have a budgetary impact on fiscal years 27 budget hearings and beyond. The scope of this engagement is May 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. And we did present this exact same report at the Ways and Means Committee meeting last week for the kickoff of the budget hearings. Now I'm going to turn it over to Vandy and Crystal and they'll go through the presentation.
Okay. The general fund increased by 32.3 million over the prior year. The increase was primarily driven by a 28.8 million increase in property tax revenues and a 13.5 million increase in other revenues, which were partially offset by a 7.3 million decrease in state grants and a $9 million decrease in charges for service revenues. General fund expenditures increased by 13.3 million, primarily attributable to higher expenditures incurred by the judicial, general government, and public safety departments, which were partially offset by reductions in health and welfare and capital outlay expenditures. Our suggested impact action is that Commission leadership should request the administration submit an annual report analyzing the cost of delivering mandated services and proposing service fee increases as deemed necessary.
Each year, we have this in our budget sensitive report because we believe it's important for the departments, especially those that are fee oriented, to look at their fees to see if the fees are covering services, if they need to increase their fees. An example I always use is years ago, we did the food inspection program and they hadn't increased their fees at that time in about 10 years. So when they did have to increase their fees, it was a significant increase where if they looked at them annually, they could maybe make small incremental increases to their fees. So we think it's important that, fees are looked at each year.
And have we received that report?
I have not seen anything regarding fees.
Okay. I have just one other question. So we had a decrease in charges for service revenue of 9 million. Was that a larger decrease than last year? I don't know if you have that information with you.
I don't have last year, so I can do a comparison, but I can look and get back to you. Maybe go a little bit more detail in here. Let me see. Oh, I have last year's. That was for charges, fees, and services. Yeah, I don't have the prior years, but in 2024, our fees was 147 million. So it may, let me check here. They're just lower than anticipated various county operations.
Yeah. Okay.
we can do a comparison to 2023 from 2024 and let you know.
Okay, Commissioner Colleen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On this topic, and it's been coming up annually. I want to say we changed our fee schedule 6-7 years ago, maybe a little bit more. And that hadn't changed for like the previous 8 or 9 years either. And so we had a big discussion. And then when the fees did change, I was hearing from all the restaurants, hey, how come the inspections are so much more? And that leads to the discussion that the Auditor General has brought up, that instead of every 10 years having a big jump, that you look at it and have incremental increases as we go. And yeah, we were supposed to, and I don't know where that belongs, Madam Chair, that could be in the Government Operations Committee, to look at that issue and all the fees that we charge, because they should kind of keep up a little bit at a time rather than a big jump. I do have a question on this page. It's and it's the fund balances. And the Auditor General's comment is right underneath the chart on page 3 of 27. General fund revenue increased 32.3, and its expenditure amounts increased by 13.3. Consequently, fund balance increased. How is that related? How does increase in revenues in the general fund result in increases in our fund balances?
We have a slide that's coming up that actually talks about the general fund balances, so that may be a good opportunity to talk about it then, because what's spendable unassigned in that area.
Yeah, I saw that, but I thought I'd ask it here, but I'll wait. Thank you, Madam Chair.
But when revenues increase and expenditures decrease, it's going to cause more of a general fund balance increase, because you have more money coming in, less money going out.
Okay, I'll wait on explore that further at the appropriate time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just wanted to add too that on our audit plan this year, we do have the food inspection program that we're going to begin within the next 30 days. So I think it's kind of telling me that we're looking at that program.
Okay, great. Okay, we can move on.
The general fund balance increased by 50.6 million, totaling 469.7 million, with the majority of the increase reflected in the unassigned fund balance. The unassigned general fund balance totaled 417.5 million, which includes 23 million designated for budget stabilization, consistent with the prior year. Our impact action item is commission leadership should continue to monitor general fund balances and amounts allocated for budget stabilization. Unassigned, unrestricted fund deficits and deficit elimination plans.
Could we go back to the fund balance? I think Commissioner Colleen had a question on the fund balance.
We have, we're obligated to report fund balances to the state of Michigan by law. But there's also an ordinance in Wayne County that we've had for 10 or 12 years on quarterly looking at fund balances and keeping, because that's been an issue for a long time. And so the reason for the ordinance was to not allow fund balances to just grow and grow and grow. And so the ordinance, and I don't see it referenced in here, the ordinance is to quarterly reconcile and get those and keep those fund balances at zero and take care of them on a quarterly basis. Has that come up in any of your work?
And that goes on to the next slide. This is the unassigned unrestricted deficits. But I can add to, let Vandy go into the next slide. This is the deficit elimination plans, which addresses that, because I do have some comments on that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I thought you were going to talk about
Again,
14.
I'm waiting.
Unassigned unrestricted fund deficits and deficit elimination plans, which is on pages 7 through 8 on the report. Unassigned unrestricted fund deficits decreased by 1.2 million over the prior year. As of September 30th, 2025, the county reported deficits in the Community and Economic Development Fund of 226,740, the Victim Witness Fund of 237,137, and the Raise the Age Fund of 10,841, and the Drug Enforcement Fund of 7,334. Our impact action item is the commission should consider requesting periodic updates on the progress of eliminating existing fund deficits and notification of projected or potential deficits and causing factors.
Now, my comment to that regarding, because if you look at the fund deficits in these four funds, are relatively small fund deficits. If the county was monitoring these more on, as you say, a quarterly basis as are required, they would be able to make the transfers to from the general fund to these special revenue funds to eliminate the deficits before they became year-end deficits. If they were monitoring more timely, rather than wait until the end of the year and realizing you have a deficit, which ties into your requirement of the quarterly reporting.
In your description, you said it was reported, the fund deficits were reported. I assume that's to the state of Michigan?
Yes.
Because again, the ordinance says that on a quarterly basis, the administration will file a plan for eliminating that deficit if it turns up.
Right.
So they haven't been, in a sense, then notifying the commission, according to the ordinance, of the fund deficits as we go through the fiscal year. Is that an accurate statement?
That's accurate. If I'm not mistaken, Chair Dobb, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe about a year ago, it may have been a year and a half ago, we met with yourself, M&B, and Commissioner Kinlack, and we had this discussion, but I think it was before we moved over to Oracle, and they were going to work on the quarterly, and I think, Mary, you may have even been there, or Terrence, they were going to work on the quarterly reporting, but now that, because we're no longer in J.D. Edwards, we're into the Oracle, I don't know, someone would have to come to the committee and report on the difficulties they're having on quarterly reporting. But quarterly reporting would help them identify their deficits sooner and be able to eliminate them sooner.
Yeah, because your impact and action statement on this, that the commission should continue to monitor the general fund balances and amounts allocated for budget stabilization. We passed an ordinance to monitor that. And if we don't get that, how do we monitor? We have a monitoring mechanism on the books for this. Just a comment.
And we haven't seen reports in some time.
Yep.
All right. We can follow up on that. All right, let's move on.
County debt and bond ratings, which is on pages 8 through 9 of the report. The county's bond ratings and outlooks remain unchanged from the prior year. The county continues to maintain a stable outlook with all 3 bond ratings. Our impact action item is, it is suggested that the commission continue to monitor the bond ratings and request the administration to provide notification of rating changes or anticipated rating changes. Now I'll turn it over to Crystal.
We're moving into the staffing shortages, overtime, and succession planning efforts. This can be found on page 9 through 13 of the report. Employee headcount increased by 356 from fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2025, with 83% budgeted positions filled compared with 75% in the prior year. The largest number of vacancies remained in the sheriff office, circuit court, and also public services. County overtime costs increased by approximately 3.7 million, totaling 37.5 million in fiscal year 2025, exceeding the budget by 18 million, with the sheriff's office accounting for 47% of the total overtime cost. As of the end of July 2025, 1,515 of 5,130 budgeted civil service positions remain unfilled. To support workforce development and succession planning, the county implemented the Oracle Learning and the Oracle Talent modules and integrated the Open Sesame online learning platform to enhance employee development, coaching, and succession planning efforts. Our suggested impact and action: as hiring and recruiting challenges endure across all county departments, commission leadership should consider requesting the following from the administration. Continue a detailed and comprehensive compensation analysis for all positions within the county, starting with county mandated departments most affected by the staffing shortages. A countywide what-if cost analysis of improved employee health and pension benefit provisions. Continue updates on the status of staffing shortages, voluntary departures, progress of hiring initiatives, and their related impact on key initiatives and mandated services. Continue periodic updates from Personnel Human Resource on implementation progress of succession planning. And lastly, an analysis of why overtime expenditures continue to increase despite a decrease in vacant positions, and an assessment of the factors contributing to the county's continued reliance on overtime.
I could just add on this, if you look at the slide on page 6, where we indicated that the overtime was over budget by $18 million, while overtime was over budget $18 million, all the vacancies within the department allowed for the overtime to be paid. Because if you had all the vacancies filled, then you would completely be over budget. But the vacancies help contribute to the payment of the overtime.
Right.
That makes sense. Because that would have been salary charges, budgeted salary charges, but because you don't have them actual salary charges, it allows you to cover the overtime.
Yeah. So, I'm just following along on the slides here, but it does say see management's commentary on page 13. Can you just give a summary of what management's response was?
Do you want to read it, Andy?
Yes, I can. The views from responsible officials. M&B acknowledged the issues surrounding the attraction and retention of quality employees. M&B and PHR are collaborating on increasing employee compensation while maintaining fiscal sustainability. Under the One Way initiative started in previous years, the administration is working with the county's union to amend collective bargaining agreements, ensuring the county will change its culture, engage employees, and improve working conditions.
Okay. Commissioner Peterson Mayberry.
Thank you, through the chair. So, and I know we've heard from the county sheriff's office in terms of what they're going to do, and I know we're in budget hearing season, so we'll hear again. But do you all think, from your perspective, what's being proposed is working? I know we see that the vacancies are short, but what I don't want us to do is not fill the vacancies because we're doing overtime. Because when we hear from employees, they are working crazy hours. And so oftentimes, because that's kind of like the cheaper route, people will do that versus actually filling a vacancy. So any thoughts on that process?
And that's why we had in our impact action items that they should do an analysis to determine what ifs. Okay, what if you change this? What if you change that? And see if it would be feasible to the county on some of the recommendations the sheriff is requesting, the unions.
Through the chair, I'd be very interested in seeing that, because if not, this is something that's going to continue to happen, and we're experiencing burnout with employees working a lot of hours, and we know how important that work is. So hopefully, if we are doing the right things to not only attract, but retain those that we have, and we've heard some discrepancies about those that we have, if we're really taking care of them like we should. So I look forward to hearing, what the next step will be for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Kling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I need a little help with the numbers on how many employees we have in your report on pages 9 and 10, that we had budgeted positions of 4,264. But on page 6 of your PowerPoint, as of the last bullet point, as of the end of July 25, per a civil service report, 1,550 of the 5,130 budgeted civil service positions were unfilled. So what's that 5,130 number if in the budget we only have 4,264 jobs budgeted for?
Our information that's coming in our report is actually from M&B and their breakdown of the positions. I'm not actually sure how personnel came up with theirs, but that's what they included in theirs. And it could be a difference between the civil 15 other, maybe there's civil service positions that are maybe not budgeted, even though they may be unfilled, but they're not budgeted, so they wouldn't be in the budget line. You could still have civil service positions out there, but not be part of somebody's budget.
Well, one says as of September
Right,
30th,
that's
and one
enough.
says as of July 30th.
Yeah, but I don't think
Yes, that's it. Budget,
months.
so
900 jobs just disappear in a couple of months. I just think this needs some clarification.
we'll get some more clarification. We've always gone by the M&B reports, but we wanted to include at least what
Right, I
personnel
gotcha.
had.
And does the 4,264, does that include appointed positions?
Yes. But it wouldn't include your project consultants or contractors.
Yeah, no, yeah, just budgeted. Because then, and I don't know exactly how many are appointed positions out of the 4,264. So that even lowers further the number of civil service positions that we have. And I would like to see that. Who are we not budgeting for in these civil service positions? Right? And it seems like a very high number of jobs. And, you know, these are the folks that make the county run on a day-to-day basis, the civil service jobs. They're the folks that deliver services to our residents. So to me, this calls for more of a breakdown and more of an explanation.
And we can work with personnel and try and determine how their numbers, because you're right, 30 months time frame shouldn't be that many positions, but we'll try and find out where they came from. Because we found the same thing when we did the overtime. When we ran the reports from J.D. Edwards for fiscal year 25 for overtime, we had one figure. Then when we compared to what M&B was reporting at one of the committee meetings, they had a different figure, but they were taking fiscal year 25 information out of Oracle. So somehow when Oracle from information in JD Edwards transferred to Oracle, the numbers didn't transfer, for at least for the overtime.
And I would just,
I think we note that in the report too.
I would just also comment then the job that the commission has for oversight and allocation, it gets a lot harder for us to do this if we can't agree on basic numbers. And so that's what let's get these baseline numbers, see what it really is, see what those 1,500 jobs are in our civil service that aren't being filled or budgeted, and why, and what kind of decisions are being made. Yeah, I think we need to know a lot more.
We'll explore this some more.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Retirement.
Moving along to retirement system funding. This can be found on page 13 through 15 of the report. As of September 30th, 2025, the county's retirement system increased slightly with a 73% funded ratio in comparison with the Michigan Public Act 202 of 2017, consistent with prior year. County contributions exceeded the required minimum by $26.5 million. Plan assets at funding value were sufficient to cover 100% of employee contributions on deposit and 76% of future benefits for current retirees and beneficiaries. However, no funding was available to cover employer match obligations. At market value, plan assets were sufficient to cover approximately 8 years of retiree benefit payments, with payments beyond that period dependent on future contributions and investment returns. Combined pre-2002 retiree liability. In July 2017, the county, Wakers, and WCAA entered into a retroactive MOU to memorialize the WCAA 10.25% share of retirement obligations for individuals employed by or retired from the airport prior to 2002, when the airport became an authority and assumed operational jurisdiction of the DTW and Willow Run airports. The MOU obligated WCAA to make payments totaling $22 million over a 5-year period ending September 30th, 2020. After which time the three parties would come to an agreement for settling any remaining unfunded portion of the liability. At September 30th, 2020, the airport authority's unfunded portion of the combined pre-2002 retiree actuarial accrued liability approximates $6.3 million. The county, Wakers, and WCAA have not come to an agreement on how the remaining liability will be settled. No payments were made by the WCAA in fiscal year 2021 through or to fiscal year 25 to fund the airport's portion of the pre-2000 retiree liability. Our suggested impact and action. Commission leadership should consider requesting management plan to resolve the outstanding obligations due from the authority for the pre-2002 airport retirees. Additionally, the county should continue to contribute more than the calculated rate to maintain a targeted funded ratio of 100%.
I could just make a comment on this one. In the M&B comment, they did indicate that they're going to work with the airport authority to be in the discussions on those pre-2002 airport retirees. But also in the past, in our impact action, we used to have that, could make sure that the county is staying above the 60% for the retirement. I think this is a good thing that now we've changed our impact items. So let's try and get towards 100% funded, because we're at 73%. We've made great progress. So now let's continue making more progress.
Great. Commissioner Peterson, Mayberry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, do we know the progress of the conversations?
No, they're just in the planning
They're
stage.
just in the planning stages. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Khalil.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going back to slide 9. Potential cash flow concerns, 3 bullet points there. And as you comment, per the actuarial valuation report. Now, isn't that the report that the retirement system does, where they hire an outside firm to come in to give the valuation?
Yes,
Right
and
now.
that's where these numbers come from. The
Yeah.
recent one came out in July of 2026, and it actually covers the prior year. So the actual reports fall a year behind.
Okay. The third bullet point there, and I would like to hear you discuss the consequences. What does that mean? No funding available to cover employer match obligations?
If your system is not 100% funded, then somebody's going to have to cover the difference. So when the county has to match a pension, an employee's pension contribution, they got the money to cover it now, but we're looking at out, like it says in here,
Yeah.
in the report, it talks about 8 years, we got enough to cover assets 8 years out, but we're talking about 10 years out. There wouldn't be anything unless the plan investment income increases, we'll get closer to the 100% funded.
And that's why we've been adding additional dollars above and beyond the annual required contribution. Is this like, so if we're at 73, and there's 27% to go to get to 100, that's what this refers to?
Right.
And what is the consequence of this? Is this some reporting that we do to the state or to the feds? What's the consequence the real consequence to the county if we're at 73.
That you're you're not 100% funded, so you can't make all the contributions in the future. But there were the consequences was with the stages that systems had to be 60% funded. So we're
Right.
well above that. So that was the consequence. We've made those great strides, with the 73%.
Yeah.
But
Matching the obligations, that means if everybody pulls out today and we have to pay everybody, we can only pay 73% of those obligations, correct?
well, you could only pull if you're eligible to retire. So there are
No,
people
but I'm
that
just
leave
saying
the system
theoretically,
and they're not
right?
even eligible.
Because there's going to be more hires and there's going to be more people leaving in the future. This is not saying that somehow the retirement system is imperiled by not being at 100%.
Right.
Because you reference, I mean, the state said, hey, get to 60 and we're cool. And we're at 73. So this statement is not an indication of somehow that the retirement system is imperiled and our retirees, well, they might for other reasons, but at least according to this, the retirees are not in any kind of danger of reduced benefits or losing benefits, or is that an accurate statement?
Right, because right now we're 8 years out. We could cover retirees.
Right, yeah.
8 years out.
Yeah, yeah.
Ninth year, that's the question.
Yeah. Okay. But we're adding money. Okay. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Moving right along, delinquent tax revolving fund found on pages 16 through 18 of the report. The delinquent tax revolving fund's net position increased by 29.7 million over the prior year, from 275.7 million at September 30th, 2024 to 305.4 million at September 30th, 2025. Transfers to the county's general fund increased by 3.7 million from 20 million in fiscal year 2024 to 23.7 million in fiscal year 2025. However, surplus transfers are expected to decline in future years. As of September 30th, 2025, cash and investments, together with expected future tax collections totaling 544.9 million, were sufficient to cover more than 100% of the outstanding delinquent tax notes of 216 million, leaving more than 328.9 million available to cover the remaining obligations of the delinquent tax revolving fund. Our suggested impact action is the commission requests a detailed analysis report on the DTRF funds. The report should start with the fund balances under the control of the county treasurer, and then the deduction of all required and justifiable reserves required for delinquent tax anticipation notes, which is the DTAN pledges, and any working capital needs resulting in the funds available that can be transferred to the general fund. Moving along with Guardian Building.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was
sorry.
looking at my
On
commissioner.
that one, delinquent tax revolving fund stirred a lot of emotions over the years. And so foreclosed property goes into the auction. Quite frequently, it sells for more than the back taxes. And the county gets the proceeds from that, or has been,
Used to.
right? And that's what's kind of ballooned the delinquent tax revolving fund, because there's been a lot of discussion, Lansing, out in the community, that hey, the county's getting rich and covering its problems with having this enormous delinquent tax revolving fund that's above and beyond, has dollars above and beyond what the taxes were that were owed. So now we're in a new universe, right? Now we have a court order that says counties can only collect the balance due on the taxes, and that any surplus from those auctions has to go back to the original owner of the house that was. Am I going wrong here somewhere?
I believe whosever home it was, it goes off action, they have to apply for the surplus funds.
Right,
They
right.
automatically, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, time period.
Yeah, but the court said they're owed it. Yeah, then you gotta do the bureaucracy and everything, right? So I don't know if that was looked at this year because I didn't see a discussion of it in here and how much that's gonna change the balances, how much that's gonna change what we've been using the delinquent tax revolving fund for. And whether or not that's gonna that change, because I understand we're doing a pretty good job out of the treasurer's office returning all of those. Uh, and whether that's going to impact or imperil any of the financing for the treasurer now that we have to do that. So did that come up in the conversation at all when this was looked at? Because that's going to be in next year's report.
And I think what's key here, the treasurer has reserves right now for all of the pending lawsuits. And I think there's many pending lawsuits. So until the lawsuits are determined, they're completed, I don't think you know how much they need in the reserves. There's some old cases and
Yeah.
class actions, so.
Well, I'm also aware that because there's been a lot in the courts on this issue. And one of the things is they're trying to create a class action
There are.
on this that would cover everybody, but the courts have said no to that. Because the attorneys in a class action suit would take 30% right off the top, and that'd be less funds available to refund. Is this something you're going to look at next year in your report when there's actually more reality to what's really happening?
When you could actually look at like one foreclosure year and you could determine how much actually is part of the surplus coming over. You could look at just that year because that'd be clear because that, there's no lawsuits because it's those properties, whoever applied for their surplus, you could see what the balance is if you looked at 1 year.
Okay.
But the big reserve balance, you can't tell until everything's settled.
Well, I think this is important going forward for commissioners because these are our people out there that are being foreclosed on. So I don't know if it's through this report next year or maybe through the year this year with the treasurer that we get a better handle on this so we can do a better job of explaining to the folks that we represent, right, what this really means and what is the fiscal impact on the county. So
that's probably a discussion for the treasurer's office.
okay. All right. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Okay. Our next section is Guardian Building and First Street Parking Deck. That's found on page 18 and 19 of the report. The Guardian Building reported a net operating loss of $174,000 in fiscal year 2025, an improvement from the $467,000 net operating loss reported in fiscal year 2024. The building's occupancy rate decreased from 88.3% in fiscal year 2024 to 86.5% in fiscal year 2025, while unpaid rent increased from $148,000 to $170,000. As of January 2026, the First Street Parking Deck has a capacity of 1,451 parking spaces, of which 1,276 of its parking spaces are in use, a decrease of 109 spaces from fiscal year 2024, primarily due to Comerica Bank no longer leasing parking spaces at the facility. Our suggested impact and action is commission leadership should consider or should ensure that Guardian Building monthly operating reports are complete and thorough and continue to be consistently forwarded to the commission for review to allow commission leadership to monitor revenues, occupancy rates, delinquencies, and space leased.
Commissioner Peterson Mayberry.
Thank you. I did have one question on this. In the more detailed report, as it broke down, the county having over 1,000, almost 1,100 employees, and the rate per space, but some are at below market rate and there's remaining spaces above. Do we know if they're, with Comerica gone now, do we know if there's a concerted effort to try to recoup that from some of the from some companies that are down here still now? Do you know that?
We are actually doing engagement of the First Street parking deck. So that is part of our engagement. We will know more.
Okay.
And it's getting pretty close to wrapping that engagement up. But that's something we're looking at, is the ones that we have least space for
Mhm.
the companies and that. So that's
Okay,
fine.
great.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Our next section is the implementation of enterprise resource planning, the ERP, that is found on pages 19 through 21 of the report. The implementation of the Connect 43 Enterprise Resource Planning System continued throughout 2025 and into 2026. The project consists of 4 components. The county continues post-go-live stabilization efforts for HCM, while implementation activities for the other 3 components, which is ERP, EPM, and the ADW, are ongoing. The total project budget is $153.3 million, of which $115.3 million has been spent through April 2026, leaving an estimated $38 million to complete the project. Our suggested impact and action: the commission should continue monitoring the stabilization of the Connect 43 ERP system to ensure timely completion of remaining project activities, including testing, integrations, training, data cleanup, and operational readiness. Continued oversight should also include monitoring project expenditures, contract amendments, staffing support, active project risk, and the county's progress towards stabilization and long-term operational sustainability of the Connect 43 system. Our next section is the state and local fiscal recovery funds, American Rescue Plan Act funding. This is found on page 22 through 25 of the report. In 2021, the county received $339.7 million in state and local fiscal recovery funds under the American Rescue Plan Act. The funds were required to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and must be fully expended by December 31st, 2026. All funds have been obligated to various projects within Wayne County, with a remaining balance of $33.5 million allocated to special account general fund projects. Our suggested impact and action is that the commission should, 1, request an update prior to December 31st, 2026 of the funds that have not been spent. 2, request an update on how the $120 million allocated for public health funding and employee benefits and compensation enhancements was spent. And 3, request a status of the remaining $33.5 million in the special account general fund projects. Our last section is the fiscal year annual comprehensive financial report and single audit findings. This can be found on pages 25 through 27 of the report. The county's fiscal year 2025 annual comprehensive financial report and single audit contained 11 findings. Of the 11 findings, 9 were financial reporting findings and 2 were related to federal programs. All 11 findings were classified as material weaknesses, and 9 of the 11 findings were repeat findings. Our suggested impact and action is that the commission should request periodic reports from M&B regarding corrective action to address the noted findings, especially those repeat findings that could have an impact on the financial statement preparation, involve reporting requirements, and adherence to uniform guidance. In conclusion, we believe that the county's financial condition is continuing to move in the right direction, with an unassigned general fund balance of $417.5 million, which includes $23 million designated for budget stabilization, and by the county's continued improvement in the bond ratings and stable outlooks from all 3 major rating agencies. The county still faces many challenges, particularly in the areas of obtaining adequate staffing and employee retention, strengthening internal controls, completing implementation of the Connect 43 ERP system, and addressing operational issues necessary to fulfill its obligation to county constituents. It is our hope that the commission finds the information in our report helpful in the preparation of the fiscal year 2026-27 budget deliberation process. This will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Marcy?
And I just want to take the opportunity to thank my staff for all of the efforts they do in completing this report. Everybody in the office gets a section in the report and they're responsible for completing the work and the analysis. So just thank everybody for their efforts because it is a big task. Usually we present this report in August. So with getting the budget on time, kind of pushed our time frame. So we got it done. So just thank everybody and thank the Committee on Audit Committee on Ways and Means for requesting this engagement.
Yes, we appreciate it very much. Thank you. Any last questions from commissioners? Commissioner?
No, it's
Khalil?
not a question. I just want to thank the Auditor General and her staff for this annual report that is always enlightening, and gives me as a policymaker a little bit of a different picture with all of this stuff all in one place. And I think this is an extraordinarily valuable document as we go forward into the budget year to talk about some of these issues. So thanks again for an outstanding annual report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I just had one other comment. All of the impact action items that are in this report flows through to the Terrence's group and Mary's group and go into the budget instructions.
Okay, great.
We work very closely with them.
All right. With that, can I get a motion to receive and file this report?
Good board.
Been moved by Commissioner Peterson Mayberry, supported by Commissioner Colleen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone wish to abstain? Motion passes. All right, we'll move back to the agenda. Madam Clerk?
Moving to item F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none. Next item.
G, public comments.
Is there anyone here who wishes to make a comment to the Committee on Audit? In person, on Zoom, or in the room, or on the phone, I mean. Please join us here at the table. The microphone at the podium doesn't work. Yep, and then just press the button one time and it'll.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
How long do we have?
Your name and
How long?
for the let's do two minutes.
Okay, I will try to keep this brief, but
Okay.
I will tell you I have a lot more relevant information than 2 minutes will allow me to say. I am formerly an MNB employee, specifically from grants compliance, specifically from the PPM team. I was recently terminated from presumably somebody above my director with very little information. That is just a data point. I attended the Ways and Means meeting yesterday, and I just kind of want to point out that it's interesting that they used the phrase continuity in reporting, but yet I hear from you today that you have not gotten a report from them for quarterly anything in quite some time. I also would like to point out that I find it interesting that the Department of Assessment and Evaluation, which seems to be tasked with making sure that reports are good to go, was not involved with any of the reports that were customized, made by the people on my team, including my director. It kind of seems like the grants compliance team is not getting the data support that office is supposed to be providing. And then in addition to that, I know for a fact that there are some issues in reporting because I was a data analyst and I identified a lot of them. And then I also find it interesting that while you have experienced delays and lack of information from MNB executives, MNB executives have been putting pressure on the grants compliance director and the PPM team lead to get dashboards done in, frankly, like a matter of days, which is quite unreasonable. I know that because I was tasked with that by my director to provide support with that. So I would just kind of like to encourage you to please look into how executives with MNB are behaving, because I don't feel that the treatment that they put on the grants compliance director and the PPM team lead has been fair. And I've also, you're talking about employee retention. I'll tell you full stop, the GCOs, the grants compliance officers, who are the first line of defense, right? They're not happy. They're not happy. And I do not blame my director for that, because my director is not happy. My former director, she's not happy either. She is bullied, and from someone with colonialist DNA, I will tell you that the tactics used are from my bloodline. And I do not appreciate it. And I do not appreciate the way that this will trickle down into the county. And so since I am terminated, I'm giving public comment because I love this county. I'm happy to provide any more information. I have quite a lot in my brain, but I hope that this is helpful, and I hope that you can please provide support to the people who are doing lovely work, because the grants compliance officers are brilliant, brilliant people who inspire me daily. And my former director, Shantika Bullard, she does not get enough credit, and her reputation has taken hits, as has my former team lead, Robbie Pat. I have watched their reputation be tarnished. I have watched the grants compliance director be told there are a lot of a lot of complaints about the grants compliance team, while being provided absolutely no information onto what that even means, and being required to create a dashboard, a performance dashboard with very little guidance in a matter of days. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming today. If you don't mind, giving your name,
Sorry.
if you want to, in the microphone, or you can, come up and give it to, or Joe will come and give it.
I'll do both.
Okay.
My name is Tobias Amadeus Breivik.
Okay, thank you for coming today. Is there anyone else who would like to, give a public comment today? Is there anyone online?
There's no one on Zoom indicating that they would like to speak.
Okay, last call for public comments. Hearing none.
Adjournment?
Next item. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor of adjourning? Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.